What's poppin' YouTube? It's your boy Raekwon back with another video. Today's video we're gonna be talking about the JBP, the Joe Budden podcast. And you know all the drama surrounding it. Rory and Mal left for like a month and a half and they're back now. And we've seen 2 episodes with them back, and we all know the energy is off. It's very, very off. And I've taken a lot away from these past 2 episodes, and this is what I'm gonna talk about in this video. The main 2 things. Hold on. Actually, I'm just gonna give my background on the Joe Budden podcast. If Rory or Mal, somebody sees this, I just want to say salute. I've been watching these guys since my sophomore year of high school. I graduated class of 2019, so I've been listening for about 4 years now. Shit's crazy just to see how big they've gotten. Pause from like when I first started watching, and it's great to see like people that you support get up to the stature that they're at now. But one thing I realized is something that I wanted to start trying to do with my friends, but I don't know if I want to do it anymore after seeing stuff like this, is that friends and business doesn't mix. Is it possible for it to mix? Absolutely, but it's something that's really, really hard to do. And there's a couple of reasons why. When it comes to the business world and stuff like that, there's always gonna be a boss, and like, if we're gonna keep it a buck, Joe is the boss of this whole operation. It's the reason why, you know, when Joe goes on his little rants about the bad business deals, he's always pretty much the main one talking. People have their ad-libs here and there and they challenge his thoughts, but for the most part, he's the only one talking. He's the only one that can really say anything about all the business deals. And the one thing that really showed me that was when they got with Patreon. Or as Joe says, Patreon, right? And what I noticed is like when you go back and watch that like 40-minute clip of that whole situation, nobody else really seems happy about the deal and everything except for Joe. And part of that is I think that what they lose out on is that this was Joe's vision from the absolute jump. Mal came along later on. No, I'm not sure because I never went all the way back to like the first episode, but I know Rory was really early, but I know for sure Mal came a little later. But this has always been Joe's vision from the start, and what I got from that first episode back is that he puts this over anything and everybody. And unfortunately, that it seems like that's just the way he rolls. And from that, it seems like when it comes to decisions that's being made for the thing, it's not gonna be the ones that benefit everybody as much as it is him, because at the end of the day, this is his vision. And when it comes to mixing business with friends, if you're not clear and if you don't make it clear that who's the boss or who's the lead of this whole operation, this is when things start to get a little confused. Now I know Mal's biggest problem was like he felt that they should have all had to talk about having Rory sit out for a while, and that's why he took his hiatus. And I partially agree with that. But what I think should have happened is they should have all came together and solved the issues that they were having, rather than take the break at all, or even maybe taking a week and doing that. Because I know in this last episode I just watched, I think they were talking about a vacation or something like that. They could have taken one to get this whole thing situated for like a week. That's only like 2 episodes, you know what I'm saying? I'm not on Patreon, but I don't know if they're like special episodes on that or whatever, but that's what could have been done. So I see Mal's frustration with that and his reasoning for leaving. But when it comes to certain things, like, let's be honest now, Joe can be an asshole at times, especially when things get heated. I think his defense mechanism is just to become a really, really big asshole. And one of the things he told Mal was that the business isn't, the podcast is none of his business. And the weird thing is, like, I guess I don't think he meant to say it in that way, but I think what he meant to say is just that he values this thing more than anybody else on the pod does, and that's true for the most part. But just like, business and friends just won't mix, because you have to consider, in business you don't have to really consider the other person's feelings as much as you do when it comes to a friendship. So when you get into the business world with your friends, consideration for their feelings sometimes goes out the window. And I don't know, it's a weird thing, but life is full of trade-offs. So sometimes you'll have to sacrifice certain things with other things. Because let's keep it a buck. If Ice and Ish, like, if their numbers were way higher than him doing this thing with Mal and Rory, I don't think that he would have tried to get them to come back. honestly. And that's because when it comes to business and friendships, it just won't mix. You won't be able to stay loyal to your friends. Well, I can't see Joe staying loyal to Maul and Rory if the business is going downhill with them being on, especially just like we just saw. I don't know if you guys saw, but what's the word? Joe was just live with Ice and Ish again. I guess they're making their own podcast now. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know how this is gonna play out, but there's more I took away from this. Joe is a very hypocritical motherfucker, and like I've always known that, but god damn. So one of the things he said, and one of the things that really like flared off in my head, was when he said that he doesn't feel like he owe his friends respect, right? And I feel like he said that shit just to say it, to be honest. I don't think he really believes that, only because I want to say maybe like 20 minutes later, he felt like Maul should have never sided with Rory and this, that, and the third. But it's like, if you don't owe your friend respect, you think you owe them loyalty? It doesn't make sense. Or you don't feel like you owe your friends respect, but you think that Maul is gonna owe you loyalty. And just like, it's a lot of the shit he did in this whole situation was hypocritical, and it was a bunch of dumb shit. For instance, like, he told Rory, I think you should sit off for the next couple of weeks, and then on the pod he's like, you guys chose to leave your duties, and it was like, no, motherfucker, it was your idea. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a lot of Joe just, I think he was just saying shit just to say shit. He comes off to me, and I don't know him personally, but he comes off to me as a person that, like, when the conversation like that gets heated, he's either gonna start to be a really big asshole, or he's just gonna start saying shit just to try to push certain buttons. And Park said it too, like, he likes to pour salt sometimes on a wound, and I think that's what he was doing by saying certain shit, just like picking at it a little bit. Even with this last episode, they made a lot of jokes towards the whole respect thing. And personally, I don't know why Maul's still there. I personally probably would have dipped out by there. And I think part of like the way Joe is, and here's the thing too, Joe, Rory, and Maul, they have like this weird friendship where I think sometimes they don't handle things right with each other. For instance, like when Nikki spazzed out on Joe and like they sat there and cracked up, or when Jay-Z looked Joe dead in his face and told that nigga so what, and shit like that, and they just laugh. It kind of like, I don't know, and they make fun of his career, even though I'll give him the flack on that shit, because it's like, I do know that I think Maul was there to like give him better advice, but I think Joe just didn't take that shit for a lot of the shit that he did in his career. But like, it seems like they do this shit because like that'll happen, but then also Joe goes to like the Breakfast Club or something and let Charlemagne just shit on Rory and Maul, or Ack would just keep talking shit about Rory and Maul, and you don't really hear Joe really address any of that. So it's a really weird friendship between the three of them. I think it's a little odd, you know. And like, here's the biggest thing that I feel like the biggest mistake I feel Maul and Rory did with this whole situation, right? And this is what I would have done personally, especially when you're in something like a group effort like this. You have to start to make your own value outside of whatever you're doing internally. I'll give you a great example, Griselda. Griselda's, they're all like, it's three main members, but then like they're all starting to branch out and do their own things. For instance, Conway has this little music group, Drum Work. Benny has the Black Soprano Family. Westside is, I'm not really sure what Westside is doing, but like they all have this core, but they're starting to branch out and do their own things. And this is the same reason why Joe's able to just walk away from shit, and he know that his value is taking away from something. For instance, when he left Everyday Struggle, he was able to just fall back to the pod because like he had value, and it wasn't just, all his value wasn't just in Everyday Struggle. And if anything, Everyday Struggle maybe got him even more fans and helped with advancing the podcast, you know, because like getting new exposure on Complex, those people seeing Joe more often, and then saying, well, let me go check out his podcast. And then from there, even he went to Revolt. And this is the weird thing too, Maul and Rory literally have sat down and watched Joe go from business venture to business venture, whether it's for Everyday Struggle, whether it's to Revolt, and I guess they never had the idea to do anything similar to that. Even if that means like Maul comes on the goddamn show with fucking brand new nails, brand new kicks, fresh fits, and all that other shit. Maul could have went out and bought a camera, and like we make all these jokes about him being on the block and shit like that. Maul could have really hit the block, and for a nigga that's with so many celebrities and stuff like that, there's so much. Like, I wish I had access to that many like celebrities and shit, cause I would be letting out YouTube videos like a motherfucker. Like you got Julius Randle, you got Brandon Jennings, and granted, these ain't the most high profile people, but shit, like your brother's the co-founder of fucking of Rockefeller. You have access to Jay-Z that a lot of people probably don't have. I'm not saying you go do a YouTube video with Jay-Z. I don't know if that's even possible, how busy that motherfucker is, but that's still a possibility. But like, and Rory, he had Henny Palooza, but like with COVID and everything, Henny Palooza's not an option. But like, I'm gonna focus on Maul for a second. Maul, I feel like Maul had the biggest potential to make so much more value outside of the podcast, just because his access to so many different people, and Rory has his connections as well. But I think Maul's access is way more, because not only is he with music people, you see him with athletes and stuff like that. I just feel like Maul has potential to make so much value for himself outside of that, and what that might do is that might boost his viewership to the podcast, to where he has a little bit of leverage and he has a little bit more power than he does right now in a position, because he's bringing more value to the podcast than being the or the maybe like 150 to 200 words of podcast guy. You know what I'm saying? And I've never been mad at Maul. I like what he does, his role in the podcast. I've always enjoyed the cracking on Joe, the laughing, because his laughs say a lot more than his words do sometimes. Like sometimes his snickers and his laughs, it says so much, even though it's just such a little gesture. You know what I'm saying? Now in Rory's case, yeah, Rory has Henny Palooza. I don't know, not Henny Palooza no more. I do say Palooza, but I don't know, like, but Rory could have done a couple of things. Now, I'm not saying he could have, because he's in the studio a lot of times with motherfuckers, but Rory could deadass do like an Emotional Oranges type of fucking vlog type shit. He could do all types of shit as well, and for some reason they're not doing anything. And I don't know if that's in their contract to where they're not allowed to go out and do anything else for themselves, but it's like, fuck. Like there's been so many opportunities, and I don't know how they didn't pick up on this after seeing what Joe has done. Joe goes from state of the culture, everyday struggle, he's doing pull-ups, he's doing all types of shit, and they haven't went out and bought a camera to go do nothing. I don't know. Parks is a different situation, because Parks once again has his own thing. Now I don't know if Parks is relying on the podcast money, but Parks is an engineer, and he's engineered and mastered, mixed and mastered certain things, so you know he has his income as well. But for those two, primarily Rory and Maul, I feel like they should, like, at least if they didn't do it before, they should start doing this now, is trying to create their own value in this space outside of the podcast. That way if there's ever a time where, like, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know how long, especially if you've seen this last episode, I don't know how much longer Maul's gonna be there, and I could be overthinking this whole situation, but when you look at Maul and the whole, like, in the whole episode, for the most part, he's not saying too much. He looks very, 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 like, out of it, and I personally don't see how long he's gonna be there, especially after all the little jabs at the respect thing and like all that other shit. I just can't see Maul being there too much longer. So if I was him personally, I would stay there and use that as a springboard to start generating value for himself outside of the podcast, and when that value starts to kick off, dip. And honestly, because it's not like, let's keep it a buck, he showed you guys that if y'all leave out, all he's gonna do is throw two other motherfuckers in that seat, and it is what it is. So at this point, it's like you gotta start creating your own value, and you guys can always be friends and shit, but that's something you gotta start doing to get some leverage, create some value outside of that podcast. Because if Joe out of nowhere decides, you know what, I don't want to do this shit no more, what the fuck are you gonna do? You know what I'm saying? So that's just something to think about, and that's what I took away from it. I had a couple more other points, but I'm just gonna leave it from there. JBP fans, if you guys ever hit this video, go ahead and hit that shit in the comment section. Just let me know what you think. Am I right? Am I on point with this shit? Is there anything else you would add? You know what I'm saying? But just let me know in the comment section. It's your boy Raekwon, and I'm out, man.